everybody. Today I thought I'd go through 5 nursing career myths that I hear all the time. I'm a senior nurse and a registered nurse tutor in the UK, so I talk to lots of students and newly registered nurses, and sometimes they're given the wrong information from other nurses, and that makes them question themselves and their career decision. So I hope you find this quick 5-minute video helpful. If you have any other questions about nursing careers, do put them in the YouTube comments and I'll try to answer them for you. And also, if anybody watching this is experienced, they might want to add to the comments to help some of the people watching the video. So the first myth that I wanted to share with you is, and I hear this all the time, is that when you're looking to secure your first role, you shouldn't specialise early on as a newly registered nurse. And some newly registered nurses, for whatever reason, want to work in one particular specialist area as their first role. They've already decided. It might be because they've wanted to work in cancer care because of a family member, or because they had a really good placement in that area. They go and talk to an experienced nurse who puts them off and says, you shouldn't specialise so early on in your career. You need to work in a hospital, for example, before you work in community or intensive care unit. And you don't. I mean, for some people, that might be a better career pathway for them to try different areas. But if you know where you want to work, you're really interested, there's nothing wrong with specialising early on. And so long as you meet the criteria in the job description and you can be shortlisted, you've got the experience and the qualifications to apply. Another thing to remember is if you do specialise early on, you're always allowed to change your mind, and sometimes the role or the specialist area is different to what you expected. But any decision to move is never a mistake. It's just building up your those experiences, and it'll all inform your long-term career development, and until you find out what fits with your skill set and your interests. So that's the first one. The second one is that you need to stay in one specialism to progress, and it's not good to move across specialisms, staying on the line of specialisms. But again, this isn't true. I know many nurses that have moved across specialist areas, maybe to get a band 6 or a more senior role. There's lots of different types of roles, fields, settings, and different career journeys now that is going to be individual to you, and you can choose what suits you. You're going to be developing knowledge, skills linked to education, leadership, research, evidence-based practice that's all going to inform your clinical skills wherever you work. The third myth is you can't go on and do post-registration masters modules or a master's course without a first degree classification or a 2-1. The entry criteria for master's courses is always dependent on the university. And there's lots of universities out there that don't set those parameters. As long as you pass your first level degree, you can do a master's module or a course. But you always need to check on the university programme website for the specific course entry requirements. And although if you're looking for PhD study, completely different, there usually is a parameter set. So it might be an upper first, a 2-1, or a second 2-2 degree classification, depending on the university. But for masters, you'll usually find modules and universities that offer without that. The fourth nursing myth might be, I'm not clever. I hear this all the time. I'm not clever enough to do my master's or a master's module. I struggled with my degree. Or you may be a registered nurse who hasn't studied for a while, or an internationally educated nurse where English isn't your first language. What I would say is masters might not be for everybody. You don't have to go on and do academic modules necessarily, and that's fine. It might not be for everybody. But if you want to apply for certain roles in the future, you might look at the job description and the personal specification, and it requires a specific master's course or module. And it's really awful if you're experienced and then you suddenly realise, oh, I can't apply for that role as I don't have the master's course or module. And that'll hold you back. And you might be an ideal person for that that role. And again, I've supported hundreds of nurses now over the years, including internationally educated nurses who thought they wouldn't do a master's, but they did it slowly and steadily. And some of them ended up, you know, doing one module maybe in the first semester or over the first year, and then build that up. And they said they'd never do a master's, but a few years later they've started one. I think one thing to remember is that once you have your master's certificate, nobody knows how many resits you've done. And master's programs are modular, so it's like building bricks, building each module, you know, you're slowly getting there. And also, there's, as I said, there's nothing wrong though with not doing a master's. If you really can't face any more academic study and it's not right for you, you've got to prioritise your physical, your mental health. But just do remember that you can take time out of a master's and spread it out over several years if you need to. Also, if you're finding difficulty securing funding for a master's course, I've got some YouTube videos on how to secure funding, maybe looking at other funding streams like charities or scholarships, fellowships or training awards that you might be interested in, if your manager can't support you with funding locally. And then finally, number 5, some nurses think that if they fail a nursing dissertation or if they are not successful on an interview, that this is going to negatively affect their progression. And I mean, if you don't get the job at the time, you know, it might be very upsetting for you, but it's not going to long-term affect your success in your career. I failed my nursing finals. I was the only person in my nursing cohort to fail, and I went on. It didn't stop me in my career. And I was also turned down for 2 team leader roles, and I nearly gave up, but on the 3rd interview I was offered the role. And it was my lack of education on reflection that let me down at interview, because I couldn't answer the questions as well as others who'd completed post-registration courses. So after that I did my master's and I went on, and I got the next post I went for was a nursing sisters post, which I got first time, which was really brilliant. So my one piece of key advice to help any of you out there progress in your career is to align your experiences with post-registration education, and make sure that the courses align to your career pathways and your interests. And I'm not saying to start a master's course when you first register. It takes a while to settle into your first role, but after a year or 2 you might think about which course suits my needs, which roles am I interested in. But as I said, if you don't want to do master study, that's fine. But some students want to carry on sort of quite early on because they're in that mode of doing reflective essays and they think they're going to forget how to do a reflective essay, for example. And post-registration nursing courses are going to help your personal statement, make it stronger, and also help answer questions, because you're going to have more in-depth knowledge to answer questions in interviews. So another big tip is to get correct career advice from local education leads and university program leads, as to which courses to apply for. And you can also speak to people in the roles that you're aspiring to as to which courses, and try and get accurate information, because what you don't want to do is go and do courses and then have to realise, well, that wasn't the right course, I should have done this course for this role. I've got a career series on my YouTube channel, again with some popular career pathways, leadership roles such as senior nurse, charge nurse, nurse educator, specialist nurse or advanced nurse practitioner, or research nurse, and I talk about some of the ways that how to become to develop into those roles, and what will help you progress with your education and what aligns to those roles as well. So do check out those videos. You might disagree with some of my views on these 5 myths, and I'd love to hear from you. Do add in the comments. I mean they're my personal views, but I do hope they help somebody out there looking at nursing careers, and I hope you have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So take care.